So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Public Transportation Division's Coordinated Call for Projects webinar. My name is Linda Hernandez. I am the Program Manager Lead, and I'll be the host for today's webinar. Today, we'll be going over the webinar purpose, programs in the call, important points, the schedule, what to submit, highlights from the budget and milestones, facilities-specific evaluation form changes, intercity bus program changes, the fleet replacement program, the Transit Technical Service Program, TTSP, where to ask questions and find the Q&A, and eGrants assistance. To ask questions during the webinar, you can submit them in the chat. It should be at the bottom left of the screen. TxDOT's responses to questions will be posted on our Public Transportation Division website. This call for projects issued November 12th requests applications for various public transportation projects relating to FTA programs. The purpose of this webinar is to provide a general overview of the call for projects. PTN is hosting webinars later this week, which will go over specific programs. So the programs in this coordinated call for projects are identified on page 4 of the application instructions document. Any project submitted must meet the scope identified for the program. So for planning projects, projects must assist small urban and rural transit agencies to develop projects and strategies to support the coordination of public, private, specialized, and human service transportation services in order to further meet people's transportation needs. For RTAP, projects must be designed and implement training and technical assistance projects and other support service tailored to meet the specific needs of transit operators in rural areas. For rural discretionary, projects must assist public transportation providers in rural areas to provide passenger transportation services to the general public using the most efficient combination of knowledge, materials, resources, and technology. Rural discretionary funds are available through this call for projects, which cannot reasonably be funded through FTA, state program formula allocations, or local resources and are consistent with the identified objectives. For intercity bus, projects must support connections, services, and infrastructure to meet the intercity bus mobility needs of residents in rural areas, consistent with the identified objectives. And for fleet replacement, projects must assist small urban transit districts with maintaining capital assets in a state of good repair. So I encourage you to read the entire call for projects. This will help ensure that you apply to the correct program or programs. Sections 1 through 4 apply to all applications. So in Section 1 is the overview. You'll have your purpose, funding, grant types and eligibility, scope, and the matrix on funding choices. You can use the matrix to look up which possible funding categories you may be eligible for based on your organization type. Section 2 is the terms and conditions. It goes over multiple items, including selection of projects, negotiations, awards, and obligations. Section 3, application submission, is the schedule, development, which goes over eGrants, training and guidance, and where to submit questions. Getting started, which outlines steps and actions for getting started on the grant application. Section 4 is the application instructions. It gives instructions regarding how to complete the applicant information form in eGrants and other relevant information. Section 5 is the programs. It goes over the scope, objective, program requirements, and evaluation criteria for each program. Section 6 is the glossary, outlines common terms and definitions used in the document. And Section 7 is attachments. We have 3, the transit facility pipeline, a vehicle life standards table, and an ICB priority connections map. So some important points. The coordinated call for projects is distributed biennially. The next call for projects will be published the fall of 2023. Projects can be for a maximum of 2 years, starting in either FY23 or FY24. So when thinking about projects to submit, please keep this in mind and ensure that you identify the projected project start date in your application. Applications must be submitted through eGrants. The status must be application submitted for review by the deadline in order to be considered submitted on time. Please pay careful attention to the status to ensure that it is in application submitted for review by the deadline. And then the master grant agreement and current FTA and TxDOT certification and assurances must be on file. They don't need to be completed prior to submission, but they will need to be on file prior to receiving a PGA. So shown is the schedule of key dates and deadlines, which is on page 12 of the coordinated call instructions. A few dates I would like to highlight are the program specific webinar dates, which are all this week. There's one tomorrow and then 2 others on Thursday. Please plan on attending the program specific webinars for any program you think you may apply for. These webinars will go over the information in section 5 of the application instructions. The deadline for submitting written questions is Friday, January 7th. And the deadline for application submission is 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, February 4th, 2020. Again, applications must be in the application submitted for review status. We are targeting recommending awards at the June commission meeting and anticipate year 1 PGAs starting September 1st of 2022. So what to submit? All applications must meet the scope and objectives of the program for which they are applying. The scope and objectives, again, are identified for each program in section 5. Applicants must answer all required questions, answer the questions thoroughly, be specific and to the point. Guidance is given in blue text in section 5, but may not cover all aspects of the question. Clearly label all attachments that include a description field. Some attachments may not have a description field, but for those that do, please clearly label them. TxDOT will not be responsible for locating or securing information not included in the eGrants application. So before you submit, review for completeness and clarity the full eGrants application and all uploaded documents. So I wanted to go over the next couple of pages, are highlights for different programs or different forms. Guidance is given for the budget and milestones page for each program in section 5. Please pay careful attention to the guidance given. Some programs only allow specific ALIs, which are identified in that guidance. Some general points to note. Indirect costs will not be considered or allowed if not indicated at the time of application submission. If in-kind match will be used, the federal column should be the amount requested, and supporting documentation must be included as an attachment for in-kind match. Applications requesting funding for more than 1 year should enter only the first year of funds being requested in the budget and milestones form. You must attach the multi-year budget worksheet to the budget and milestones form. The multi-year budget worksheet can be found on the website with the instructions, and please leave that in the Excel format. Milestones must be entered as appropriate for each line item. At a minimum, the contract start date and contract end date must be entered for all activities. If you'll be completing a procurement, the RFP, IFB date must be entered. And if you're requesting vehicles, there are 2 additional vehicle-related milestones that must be entered. TDCs will be available. TDCs must be requested by checking the box under TDC requested ? For the appropriate line item. So each line item that you're requesting TDCs for needs to have a check on that box. The facility-specific evaluation form has some changes that have been made. We are requesting additional information regarding ownership of the property, leases and liens, joint development and incidental use, and if property is in a floodplain, and the status of flood insurance if applicable. This information previously had been gathered on the back end, and now we're requesting this up front in the application process to help us have a more complete picture of the project. For intercity bus, PTN has identified specific priorities for the program, which are based on the Texas ICB Strategic Direction Report and the Texas ICB Study. These priorities include the following: sustain historically subsidized intercity bus routes with continued demonstration of need and performance, and identified as a priority connection and to be sustained in the Texas ICB study. Support new and or previously unsubsidized routes with sufficient justification of need and proposed performance. Provide transition funding for proposals to sustain underperforming historically subsidized service connections to allow time for identification and implementation of alternative sources of funding and or service design by the service provider. Please attend the program-specific webinar on November 18th at 3 p.m. for more information regarding ICB. So since the fleet replacement program is still a relatively new program, I wanted to spend a little bit of time going over this. This is the second time it is appearing in our coordinated call for projects. The scope is to assist small urban transit districts with maintaining capital assets in a state of good repair. Eligible subrecipients are small urban transit districts. Eligible project types may include, but are not limited to, fleet replacement, fleet rehab, minor fleet facility renovations and improvements, shop equipment, and other miscellaneous equipment, fleet maintenance, hardware, and or software. So TxDOT will provide funding for up to 50% of the total cost for capital projects. And for that 50%, TDCs may be requested as match. The other 50% of the capital project must be funded with other sources of funds, which can be 5307, 5311, 5339, state funds, local funds. The federal funding sources must include match as appropriate. If other federal funds have not been programmed with other sources of match, then you can request TDCs as match. If it's already been programmed in FTA with other sources of match, TDCs cannot be requested at that point. But please attend the program-specific webinar on November 17th at 11 a.m. if you have questions and to get more information on this program. So for any project submitted, if a project is eligible for the Transit Technical Service Program, it may be moved to the TTSP program. This program provides focused technical assistance to rural transit districts in 3 areas, and that's financial management and analysis, capital project development, and operational and service analysis. So if your project is for any of these items mentioned, you may want to look at the TTSP program. The division reviews requests generally in April, August, and December. So if you do have one of these projects, you may want to look at submitting prior to December if you'd like to have it reviewed for December. So where to ask questions. If you want clarification on the specifications for the call for projects, you can email ptn_programmgmt@TxDOT.gov. Again, TxDOT's responses to written questions will be posted on the Public Transportation Division website. If you're interested, you should check the website periodically for updates to our Q&A. So all questions are due January 7th. A final Q&A document will be posted to our website the following week. For eGrants assistance, you can email ptn-eGrantsHelp@TxDOT.gov or call them at 512-486-5957. Please do not call the help desk regarding content questions. Those should be submitted to the ptn_programmgmt@TxDOT.gov website. And that is the end of the presentation. I'll check to see if there are any questions submitted in the chat now. There's a question about large urban agencies applying for the call for projects. I would encourage you to look at the matrix mentioned before, the matrix for eligible applicants, and you can see if that they are eligible. But I will get back with you. So I'm not seeing any other questions so far, but we can wait for a little bit. I will go back to that schedule. And this presentation will be posted online, both a recording of the presentation and the PowerPoint presentation will both be posted. So there was a question asking to go over the Transit Technical Assistance Program again. So again, if the project is eligible for the TTSP program, it may be moved. The program provides focused technical assistance to rural transit districts in these 3 areas. If you have questions, I encourage you to go to the website and look at that site, and you can submit questions to the TTSP program. So I'll hang on a couple of more minutes, but I'm not seeing any questions right now. Again, if you have questions, you can always submit them to the PTN_program MGMT at TxDOT.gov. And one reminder about the TTSP program is that you can apply directly to the TTSP instead of coordinated call if your project falls into any of these categories, and it is not competitive. So I said that the TTSP is not competitive. The entire coordinated apply to TTSP, those projects kind of get in queue for completion, but coordinated call, the full coordinated call is competitive. So there's a question if small urban can apply for TTSP. At this time, I don't believe small urban can apply for TTSP. It provides technical assistance to rural transit districts in these 3 areas. So although right now small urbans can't apply, if that does change, we will let everyone know. We will send out an email and let people know. But at this time, it is for rural transit districts. If that changes, if the TTSP program is accepting applications for other agencies, we will inform everyone of that. So do we have any other questions? Okay, that is all I have for you all. Again, if you have questions that were not answered in this presentation, one, I encourage you to go to the program-specific webinars later this week, or you can submit questions to the email ptn_program mgmt@txdot.gov. Thank you so much. Have a good day.